And 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
What in the world?
What did? Oh no.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Christian Recorder Dialogues. As you know, we are doing a series to get you to know our new bishops and general officers. Before we begin, we ask you to put your name, your district in the chats and comments. I'm delighted to have the head of the class, the first female head of the class, the Right Reverend Erika D. Crawford. Welcome here to the Christian Recorder, Bishop Crawford.
Glad to be here.
So we're excited to have you here. We'll just go ahead and get into the interview because people want to get to know you as one of the new Reverend Mothers of the Church.
All right.
So first and foremost, how did you get into the AME Church? So tell us about the evolution of your faith.
Okay. So I was born into the AME Church.
Okay.
My grandfather belonged to a little AME church in Method, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And when he moved north, my his parents told him, find an AME church.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've said this in my journey. He brought my mother to the altar to be baptized in the AME church. My mother brought me to the altar to be baptized in the AME church. I've been AME all my life. I had some moments during college where I explored, but the Lord brought me back here, and I'm convinced that this is where the Lord would have me to be.
So tell us about your call to the ministry. When did you decide to pursue that ordination?
So I was called to the ministry while I was in college, working on a paper, and I felt it becoming a sermon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt myself being separated from my college roommates, and the Lord just continued to work in me. At that time, I answered my call at Reach Chapel AME Church under Reverend James R. Glover before I went back home and served under Reverend Winton M. Hill III.
Interesting. I was at Reed Chapel visiting their current pastor, my frat brother, Reverend Grady. We are taping this on December the 6th. So we're just going to say that right there. But it was nice to see the church. So that's where you got your start.
That's where I got my start.
So tell us about your career in the ministry. So you pursued ordination, but then you decided the Lord called you to pastor. So walk us through that journey.
Well, and so when I initially answered my call to ministry, I was sure I didn't want to pastor, never wanted to pastor, but went ahead and pursued seminary and ordination. I started out as a university chaplain for Fordham University at a Catholic university, and then became the chaplain for the WNBA, New York Liberty. And then got called to the pastoral ministry. I wasn't even there to receive my first pastoral appointment.
Wow.
I didn't know, but the Lord saw fit. Bishop Norris sent me to my first church, and I love pastoring. It's different than chaplaincy, and it's been a blessing to me.
Wow. So I'd be, as a bishop now, if you gave an appointment and you were like, you ain't here to get me, well, just remember that Bishop Norris.
Exactly.
So one of the things that I know people know you most for is for you being the president of women in ministry. So tell us a little about your time in that role, what you saw, and just your thoughts on women in ministry.
Yeah, I thank God for women in ministry. It gave me an opportunity to develop my leadership skills. Reverend Lillian Fry Webb, when I was a young minister in the New York conference, said, I want you to develop your skills, and I want you to be a leader in women in ministry. And so the women supported me and lifted me up and gave me opportunities to lead. I never saw myself as the connectional president, but they saw in me. And they supported me. And so I thank God for the 8 years I was able to serve as the connectional president, to advocate for the more than 4,500 women serving God through the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and the work that women in ministry have done over a number of years, and the shoulders I stand on, because I'm clear. I see over the fence now, not because I climbed the fence, but because somebody lifted me on their shoulders.
So what were some of the highlights of your tenure as connectional president?
Some of the highlights were taking the first Connection of Women in Ministry meeting to the continent.
I remember that.
The blessing of being able to do that. COVID was a good thing for us. It gave us an opportunity to come together virtually to do some mentoring and some teaching. So those are some of the phenomenal things. But even the growth we saw in membership and associate membership, some of the brothers that came alongside us to let us know that this is not us and you. This is we are together. And that was a blessing to me.
Wow. And let's talk about your ministry. So your pastorates and like your career as being a pastor at the roads you've taken.
So blessed to get called by Bishop Norris unexpectedly to my first church, Allen Temple AME Church in Mount Vernon, New York, which coincidentally is where my Episcopal supervisor serves as the pastor now. And then to Ebenezer AME Church in Rahway, New Jersey, and then to Mount Zion AME Church in Dover, Delaware. Always got moved outside of the annual conference, always got moved out of another state where I had to pick up and move. But it taught me to see the church as a connectional church and to see more than just my local church, my presiding elder district, my annual conference, but to see the church as a whole.
I remember I went to Ebenezer Rahway. You invited me to go to Ebenezer Rahway, and I was on my way there to be your guest, and then that was the week that you got moved.
Yeah.
So I technically have never been able. Then I was supposed to go see you in Mount Zion, Delaware, and I couldn't make it because I had some commitments. So I'm going to see you in the 8th
You're going to come see me in the 8th district?
So I'm hoping that nothing happens between now and that visit.
Amen.
Which is supposed to be next week. But I would like to ask, so, we know that the episcopacy is a calling. So when did you feel called to the episcopacy?
People had deposited leadership in episcopacy in my spirit from the time I was in seminary. Never saw myself in the episcopacy. Began to feel a pull maybe about 3 years ago. And then my mother died. And when my mother died, my mother loved the AME Church. And in cleaning out my mother's house, I found my baptismal gown.
Wow.
And so that was it. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I hear you, Lord. I'm going to walk in divine obedience. And the Lord made the way. It wasn't an easy way, but the Lord made the way.
Wow. And, just sitting with that for a second, and the road to the episcopacy and the road to the episcopacy for a woman. And I know that I remember I get to say this now. So in 2000, when Jamie Williams brought the resolution, I'm actually the one who typed it. I was sitting at like this old Mac computer in her house, Tennessee. She was dictating it. I typed it, that the one that she sent over to J.L. Williams, and that the lay brought to the General Conference that officially got passed. Well, didn't get passed, but as Bishop McKenzie said, it showed that she just needed a few more votes to get elected. But, and I've been on the campaign trail, and we've talked, and just seeing that misogyny is real. There are some people who say that, a male and female, who say, I don't want a female pastor, let alone a female bishop. And so can you talk about, as what the candidate trail was like for you?
So I had to learn early on not to take things personally, right? That there are people who have other agendas, and I had to be clear about my agenda. And so early on, people would say things like, well, we're not going to take a woman, or what woman are we going to take? And I had to pivot and make clear, I'm not the best woman candidate. I'm one of the best candidates, period. And so once I embraced that myself, that became my message. Don't elect me because I'm a woman. Elect me because I've done the work, right? And the night before the elections, the Lord dropped in my spirit, don't hook me up, look me up. I've done my work. And so while it was a journey, and while there were certainly some battles to fight, my work stood for me. And I said my whole campaign, I'm working for God's glory and our good. And if you look at my resume, that's what it says.
And I think the connection, we broke several barriers at that General Conference. The resounding vote of confidence in you for you to be the head of the class first, and also assigning Bishop Brookins to the 5th district, which ironically is the same thing that happened to her father after he went from the 17th to the 5th. But I know there was talk of, well, are we going to send a woman to that district? And then looking candidly at where female bishops have been assigned versus where they could have been assigned, and seeing Bishop Brookins being in what is considered to be a top tier district. So, you did the thing in General Conference.
And the thing that's encouraging is I don't come from a family of preachers. I don't come from a family that has any hierarchy in the church. So the affirmation that you can do the work, and the people in the church will recognize the work.
And another barrier you broke was the appointment of your supervisor, Reverend Harry. So let's talk to me about him and what led you to make that choice.
So I wanted someone who loved missions, not just who wanted to be a supervisor, not just who would work with the missionaries, but somebody who embodied what it meant to do missions and outreach. And that is his life, right? He does outreach work in Guatemala. So in my prayer and discernment, we sat around the table with his family, with his wife and his daughter and the dog, and we prayed. And the Lord said, Reverend Hugh Marriott. And so
That's
from,
wonderful.
it has been he has been a blessing to my ministry.
Mm.
His family has been a blessing, and I'm grateful. It's different. He's an ordained man, but he has the anointing for the assignment.
Yes, yes. And there's something, I mean, another barrier or something that you've shown, like, for example, I am not married.
Mm.
And I have been asked, well, we need to get you married, or
Mm.
when you're going to get married, or what are you going to do for your, I'm like, the Lord has not revealed to
Yeah.
me. I mean, I desire to be married, I desire marriage,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to marry
Mhm.
somebody just to get a role.
Yeah.
And, and when you're not married in the denomination, all of a sudden certain things begin to be said. And I'm saying, I'm not talking about your
Yeah,
story, I'm talking
yeah.
about my
Yeah,
story
yeah,
and things that
yeah,
I've seen
yeah.
and been told to me. So can you talk a little bit about, that journey as
Yeah.
well?
And so what in full transparency, I am divorced. I got
Mhm.
married very young and divorced very young. But I had to become comfortable with what God has for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very clear about the work I have put in and the investment I've made in ministry. And I'm not going to compromise that to satisfy some people
Mhm.
who are not going to be accountable for my ministry. So I'm comfortable with where I am with serving the Lord as a single woman in the AME Church in the episcopacy. And if the Lord reveals something different, I'll receive it. But until the Lord says, I don't need a hookup, I don't need a date, I don't need anything else, I am comfortable with who I am and the work I am doing. And I'm not going to allow anybody to distract me from that.
I mean, and again, the vote of you as the head of the
Yeah.
class showed that the Connectional Church sees,
Yeah.
values, understands your ministry and gifting, irrespective of your
Oh,
last
absolutely.
name.
I think when you're serious about the work,
Mhm.
then people respect the fact that you're serious about
Yes,
the
and
work.
that was one thing. I mean, you were the authentic candidate.
Mhm.
That's what I kept hearing from people. You were the authentic candidate.
Praise God.
So let's talk about the transition from, from the lavender shirt of Wim to the purple shirt.
Yeah.
So walk us through these first few months of being a bishop.
So it's been a journey.
Mm.
What I can say is that I don't think there's anything anybody can tell you about it. It's one of those things you have to do yourself.
Mm.
And so the people of the 8th District have been wonderful and
Mm.
very receptive of me. And I've had to draw some boundaries and some lines and get adjusted to some things. But to come out of the general conference and go straight into your annual conference series, to have to relocate to another part of the country and learn another culture, it's an adjustment. But my colleagues, the other bishops of the bench, have all made themselves available. Their wisdom has been invaluable. And I'm excited about the opportunities to learn and to grow, but also to explore new ways that we can make the church relevant for this present. I'm very clear, I'm from a different generation.
That's right.
I have a different exposure to ministry.
That's right.
And so I'm not trying to mimic anybody, but I can certainly learn and do great work.
So what's your vision for the 8th District? When you come to General Conference in 2028, what do you want to see have happened in the district you were appointed to superintend?
So what I say to the people of the 8th is we are the great 8th. Mm-hmm. And so my goal is to make us the greatest Episcopal district that we can be. I want us to raise the standard of ministry. We're not competing with anybody, but average is a sin when excellence is required. So we're pursuing excellence.
Yeah. Well, Benjamin Mays said, "Low aim, not failure, is sin." So that spoke to my Morehouse. I appreciated that. Okay, and I know that you were elected from Mount Zion, Delaware, and you still technically are the pastor of Mount Zion, Delaware. Yeah. And the Bishop Green mentioned that there was some work you had to tie up. So tell us about that last capstone of your pastoral ministry.
Okay, Mount Zion, Delaware, Mount Zion, Dover is
Dover. Mount Zion, Dover.
Yeah.
Dover. It's in Dover. It's Mount Zion, Dover, the capital of the state. That doesn't have an airport because I was going to fly into Newark and drive down. So I know it's Dover.
Mount Zion is a phenomenal church. Bishop Ming built the original building that was there.
Wow.
Reverend Rudolph Wesley Coleman, who a lot of people know his brother, D.C. Coleman, built the second edition. And when I got there, I noticed that there was not an administrative wing. So we are working on a $2 million administrative wing, which we thought would be up by now. But the week before Christmas, we're scheduled to close on the mortgage. And once we get that going, the Lord is going to bless Mount Zion with an administrative wing to continue to grow the ministry. And I'll be there to begin the work. And then Bishop Green is going to send somebody to finish the work.
So the Bishop Crawford administrative wing will be open. I mean, I know you're not going to name it for the
No.
people, but I'm pretty sure they're going to hang your face proudly
But
in that church.
They have done that. And I'm excited for them. They're poised to grow. They're prepared to grow. And I am convinced that Bishop Green will send somebody to take them to the next level.
He has already indicated great godly judgment in his appointments. Shout out to Carolyn Cavanis and the new pastor of St. Matthew as well.
Yeah. Robert Jackson.
Robert Jackson, thank you. We did breaking news on both of y'all. So we waiting on First Bethel and Mount Zion to finish up the first district. Well, Bishop, we've seen you for a while and we will see you yet because we know your retirement date is 2042.
2048.
2048.
I got a long time, 24 years.
Yeah, well.
I'm excited.
And so just as we close, just what are some things you would like our viewers to know about your desires for the church and where you see us going?
Yeah. I would say that I think the best is still yet to come. I think we have to do some reevaluating. I think we have to do some repositioning. But I don't think God is through with us. And I wish that we would pour as much energy into lifting up the church as often as we do to tearing down the church. I think God has something for us, but we got to be on one accord and we have to be ready, positioned, and prepared. So I'm excited. God is not through with us yet. And let's keep working for God's glory and our good.
That's right. And y'all probably could see the wrist. There's that lovely purple bracelet.
Yes.
But there's other...
the crimson and cream, oh, to be a Delta girl.
So we had to make sure we said that. So it is December when we're recording this. Bishop, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm excited to go see your work up close in the 8th in a few days. And I'm excited for what you will do for this church.
Thank you.
Everyone, we are thankful for Bishop Crawford, and I know you'll be seeing and hearing much more of her over these next few quadrennia. And we look forward to seeing you again on the Christian Recorder Dialogues.